Husband discovers his wife's secret affair, caught cheating in the most shocking way. The betrayal that shattered everything, how he uncovered her lies and scandalous secret life. Title: My wife, 32F, cheated on me. 34M, lied to my face and I don't know how to breathe anymore. Part 1, the beginning of the end. Introduction. Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be the one writing one of these posts. I've lurked on this sub for years, reading stories and thinking, damn, I feel bad for that dude, never once thinking I'd be in the same boat, drowning without a clue how to swim. My wife, let's call her Lena, and I have been together for almost 9 years, married for 6. We met at a mutual friend's party. She was loud, sarcastic, confident in a way that drew everyone's attention. She had this laugh that could slice through a crowd and pull you in, and I was all in, man. She was a firecracker, and I guess I was the quiet guy who thought he could hold onto lightning. For a while, it worked. We had our share of ups and downs like any couple, but I always thought we were solid. We didn't have kids by choice. We wanted to travel, build our careers first. She's in marketing, works from home mostly. I'm in IT. Not the flashiest job, but it pays well and gives me some peace. We bought a house together 3 years ago. Had our routines, our favorite takeout place, our weekend movie nights. It felt like life. Not perfect, but ours. About 6 months ago, though, things started feeling off. She got more distant. Not cold exactly, just distracted. Her phone became a permanent fixture in her hand, even when we were supposed to be spending time together. She started working late more often even though she worked from home. Her phone was suddenly always on silent. She changed her passcode. I asked once, jokingly, and she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out. You're being paranoid, she snapped. But it wasn't just that. She stopped being affectionate. Sex became a rare event, and when it did happen, it felt like, I don't know. Like she was checking a box. No spark. No connection. I'd ask if something was wrong and she'd say I was overthinking. That I was too sensitive lately. Looking back, I think part of me knew. But when you love someone, when you trust someone that deeply, your brain fights your gut. I thought we were just going through a rough patch. I kept telling myself we'd come out the other side stronger. That couples go through stuff, right? God, I was such a fool. Part 2, cracks in the mask, early signs and suspicion. So like I said, things were weird for a while. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Her company was going through some kind of restructuring, so I figured maybe she was just anxious about her job. I tried to be supportive. Made dinner more often. Cleaned up without being asked. Little things. Thought maybe if I took a few things off her plate, we'd get back to normal. But it didn't help. If anything, she got more irritable. Snappy. Dismissive. Like I was a roommate who kept forgetting to take the trash out instead of the guy she once said she couldn't live without. The big red flags came in slowly, like little warnings I ignored because I didn't want to believe what they meant. She started guarding her phone like it was a secret government device. Bathroom trips? Phone in hand. Shower? Phone on the counter, screen down. She changed her style out of nowhere. Started dressing way more. I don't know, sexy? Nothing wrong with that on its own, but it was sudden. She used to live in sweatpants during work hours. Now it's tight tops and makeup for video meetings. She had this new laugh. I know that sounds crazy, but trust me. You learn someone's laugh when you love them. This one was different. Forced. Like she was putting on a show for someone else. She started texting constantly. I'd ask who it was and get just work stuff or Amanda from HR every damn time. It was always Amanda. I started to hate the name Amanda and I've never even met her. One night we were watching TV, well, I was watching, she was glued to her phone and I saw her smile in that way people do when they're flirting. Not a friendly smile. A flirty smile. Her screen lit up for a second before she locked it, but I caught a glimpse. It was a text that said, "Can't stop thinking about last night." I froze. My blood legit turned to ice. She noticed me staring and immediately flipped out. Jesus, why are you looking over my shoulder? That's so invasive. She stormed off like I was the problem. That was the moment I knew something was really wrong. My heart sank and stayed there. Still, I told myself maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it really was Amanda. Maybe there was some inside joke I didn't get. But deep down, I think that was the first moment I admitted to myself this might be more than just a rough patch. Part 3, the slip-up, the discovery begins. Alright, so after that night with the "can't stop thinking about last night" text, I couldn't sleep. I laid there beside her, listening to her breathe while my mind raced in a million directions. I didn't want to be that guy snooping, spying, going through his wife's phone. But something in me cracked that night. Call it intuition. Call it desperation. The next day, she left to go work from a cafe, which was new. She never used to do that. But suddenly she needed space and a change of scenery. I waited 15 minutes after she left and walked into her home office. She'd left her work laptop open. I knew it was a long shot, but I checked her calendar hoping to find something, anything. Just an explanation. A meeting invite. A note. Something to prove I was just being paranoid. But guess what I found instead? An unsent email in her drafts folder. Just sitting there like a loaded gun. It was written to someone named Jay. Not a work contact. Not someone I'd ever heard of. It said, "Last night was amazing. I don't know how much longer I can keep lying to him. I feel guilty, but when I'm with you, I feel alive again." I stared at that screen for what felt like forever. My mouth went dry. I literally felt my heart thudding in my chest. I read it again and again. Lying to him. Feel alive again. Every word felt like a bullet. I took a screenshot and emailed it to myself. I didn't touch anything else. I didn't want to give her a reason to suspect I knew. That night, she came home all smiles. Had a smoothie in hand like she just had the most refreshing day of her life. "Hey babe," she chirped. Kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. I stared at her and tried to pretend I wasn't dying inside. My hands were shaking. My stomach was in knots. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to be sure. That email could still be just words, right? Right? Spoiler, it wasn't. Part 4, The Truth in the Trash, Concrete Evidence. So now I had the draft email, but part of me still clung to the hope that maybe it was some weird fantasy thing or emotional cheating at worst. I know how dumb that sounds, but when you love someone, denial becomes your best and worst friend. The next couple of days were hell. I couldn't eat. Could barely function at work. Every time she smiled at her phone, my stomach twisted. Every time she kissed me goodnight, I felt like I was being stabbed with my own wedding ring. Then came the moment that ripped the last shred of doubt out of me. She went out one evening for drinks with the girls. Amanda again. Of course. I waited until she was gone, and this time I went through the trash on her computer. Literally. The trash bin. Boom. There it was. A series of deleted screenshots and photos. A few selfies of her, clearly taken in a hotel room. Makeup perfect, hair done, in lingerie I know I've never seen before. Then came a shot of him. Shirtless. Holding a glass of wine. Lying in bed with her. The timestamp? Just 4 nights ago. My whole body went cold. You know how in movies when someone finds something devastating, there's that high-pitched ringing sound? That happened. Literally. I couldn't even hear for a second. I thought I might throw up. There were texts, 2 screenshots of messages she'd sent him. Stuff like, "God, I wish I could wake up next to you every day. He's clueless. I feel bad sometimes, but it fades the second I see you. Can't wait to sneak away again next week." That was it. Game over. I had proof. Not just emotional cheating. Not work stress. Not paranoia. She was having a full-on, secret second life. Behind my back. In my house. In my bed. I emailed every screenshot to myself, backed them up in the cloud, and saved them on a flash drive because I knew when I confronted her, she'd lie. And wow. She really did. Part 5, The Confrontation and the Lies begin. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, just staring at the wall while she slept next to me like she wasn't actively setting fire to our marriage. The next morning, I decided I couldn't pretend anymore. I wasn't going to wait for the next lie, the next Amanda story. The next night she came home smelling like a man who wasn't me. She was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling her phone like usual, sipping coffee like it was just another Thursday. I walked in and said, "Who's Jay?" She froze. Like, actually froze. Blinked a few times. Then gave me this tight little fake laugh. "What? Who?" I didn't answer. Just pulled out my phone and started reading the draft email out loud. "Last night was amazing. I feel guilty. I feel alive again." Her face drained of color. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, then immediately snapped into defense mode. Classic Lena. She flipped the switch from caught to offended like she was the one being wronged. "You went through my stuff? Wow, that's disgusting. How dare you invade my privacy like that?" I couldn't believe it. No denial. No apology. Just instant rage. That was her go-to, attack before being attacked. I stayed calm. Too calm, maybe? I said, "You're cheating on me. With some guy named Jay. I have the messages, the pictures, the hotel info. Don't insult me by pretending I'm wrong." She went quiet. Real quiet. Then, wait for it, she started crying. But not real crying. Not tears of remorse. More like a bad soap opera. Crocodile stuff. And what did she say? It didn't mean anything. That old classic. Like that was supposed to make me feel better. Like, "Oh cool, you blew up our marriage for nothing, phew." Then she followed it up with, "It was just a phase. I was bored. I needed attention. You've been so distant lately." That one really got me. Me? I'd been bending over backwards trying to connect with her. I'd been here, showing up, loving her through all her bullshit. And she blamed me? She said it was only a few times, swore it was over, swore she'd never speak to him again. Promised we could fix it. But I wasn't even sure I wanted it fixed. Not anymore. Part 6, The Gaslight Games, Emotional Whiplash. So after the crocodile tears and the half-assed apology, she shifted gears again. Like she was speedrunning all 5 stages of manipulation. First it was the guilt trip. "You never noticed me anymore. I just felt invisible. You spend so much time on your computer, I thought you didn't care." Then came the pity party. "I think I'm depressed. I've been lost for a while. It's not about him, it's about me." And finally, the love bomb. I still love you. This doesn't change that. Please don't throw away everything we've built. I just sat there letting her unload all the scripted nonsense like I was watching some twisted performance art. I kept thinking, where was this energy when you were sneaking off to hotel rooms? Where was this when you were calling me boring and distant while screwing some guy you barely knew? The worst part? For a second, a small, pathetic second, I wanted to believe her. That's how deep this shit runs. When you love someone that much, your brain will twist itself into knots trying to make their betrayal make sense. But then I remembered the pictures. Her lingerie selfies. The texts where she said I was clueless. The wine glass in his hand. I asked her, if I hadn't found those messages, would you have ever told me? She didn't answer. Didn't even try. Just looked down at her coffee cup like it was going to rescue her. That silence? That was my answer. So I told her I needed space. Packed a bag and went to stay at my brother's. Left her there with her guilt and her bullshit excuses. She didn't even try to stop me. Part 7, the aftershock, alone with it all. So yeah, I packed a bag, just the essentials, and walked out the door of the house I helped build, the home I thought we'd grow old in. It felt like my spine was made of glass. I got in my car and drove to my brother's place without really seeing the road. Everything felt distant, like I was floating outside of my own body watching a man who looked like me fall apart. My brother, thank God for him, didn't ask questions right away. Just gave me a beer, a blanket, and the guest room key. He knew. I think he could see it in my face. I looked like someone had pulled my heart out and made me watch. That first night, I just lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Didn't cry. Didn't sleep. Couldn't. I just kept replaying every moment in my head like a movie on loop. Our wedding. Her laugh on our honeymoon. Sunday mornings making pancakes together. That time she got the flu and I stayed up all night feeding her soup and holding her hair back. All those moments that meant something to me meant everything, and now they were poisoned. Tainted with the knowledge that while I was loving her, she was somewhere else with someone else making new memories. Worse? I started questioning everything. Did she ever love me? Was she always capable of this? Was I just too blind, too naive to see the cracks forming all along? I felt like an idiot. A joke. A man who played house while his wife played him. I didn't text her. She didn't text me. That silence was loud as hell. And lonely. I missed her even though I hated her. Tell me how that works? How do you miss someone who just wrecked you? Grief is so damn weird. I wasn't just mourning the relationship. I was mourning the version of myself that believed in it. Part 8, Damage Control, her attempt at redemption. 3 days. That's how long it took before she finally reached out. I was at my brother's place, zoning out to some dumb action movie I wasn't really watching when my phone buzzed. Lena. Can we please talk? I miss you. I'm sorry. I messed up so bad. Please don't give up on us. She didn't call because of course she didn't. That would require actual courage. But texts? Oh, she could text. She sent paragraphs of word salad trying to make herself sound broken, tortured, full of regret. All the right notes, but none of it felt real. She said she'd ended things with Jay. Didn't say when, which told me all I needed to know. Claimed she blocked him, deleted everything, wanted to start fresh. She even offered to go to therapy together and alone. Said she'd do anything to fix it. I didn't respond right away. I needed time. I was still trying to unclench my heart. The next morning, she left a handwritten letter in my mailbox. Yeah, a real letter. On fancy stationery. She never wrote letters before. Said things like, "You were always too good for me. I hate myself for what I've done. I don't deserve a second chance, but I hope you'll give me one anyway." It was like reading the script to a bad redemption arc. And maybe part of it was genuine, I don't know. But something about it felt performative. Like she was more sorry she got caught than sorry she did it. I showed the letter to my brother. He just shook his head and said, "You're not a rehab center for broken people who won't fix themselves." That hit hard. Because for the past 6 years, that's what I'd been doing, patching things up, explaining her moods, absorbing her coldness, rationalizing her distance. I didn't respond to the letter. Not yet. I needed to get my mind right before I let her pull me into another guilt-laced conversation. What she didn't know. I'd already made an appointment with a lawyer. Part 9, the lawyer, the ledger, and the lies that keep coming. So yeah, I called a lawyer. Not because I was dead set on divorce right that second, but because I needed clarity. I needed to know what my options were. What I'd be walking into if I decided to burn it all down. The marriage, the house, the shared accounts, everything. The consultation was cold but necessary. I laid it all out, the affair, the texts, the timeline. The lawyer, let's call her Karen, don't worry, she's the good kind, nodded like she'd seen it all 100 times before. Because she had. Karen said if I wanted to, I had a pretty straightforward case. No kids, no messy joint business, just assets. And the kicker? I had proof. Lots of it. Screenshots. Emails. Pictures. Lena didn't know how digital trails work apparently. Her it meant nothing defense wasn't going to hold up if it came to court. Karen told me to do 2 things. Don't confront again until you're ready to act. Start separating finances now. Quietly. That night, I logged into our bank accounts and realized something I hadn't noticed in the fog of everything. Lena had been spending more. Hotel charges, bar tabs, rideshares to sketchy areas she never mentioned going to. It wasn't just the cheating, it was financial betrayal too. And here's the real punch in the gut. One charge stood out. A dinner receipt. 2 entrees. 2 drinks. The name of the place? The same damn restaurant we went to on our first anniversary. That one hit different. She took him there. Our place. She recycled our memories for a quick thrill. That was the moment something snapped in me. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just silence. Like a switch flipped and I finally understood the depth of it. The disrespect wasn't just in the cheating. It was in the casualness of it. The laziness. Like she didn't even care enough to hide it well. So while she was out sending teary-eyed texts and handwritten guilt trips, I was printing out bank statements and setting up a new personal checking account. This wasn't about if I was leaving anymore. It was about how. Part 10, The Showdown, Final Confrontation. A week later, I went back to the house. Not to reconcile. Not to talk it out. I went back to finish it. I told her I was coming by to pick up some of my things. She asked if we could talk again. I said sure. When I walked in, she had this whole act prepared. Candles. Clean house. She looked like she just stepped out of a Pinterest post. Hair done. Soft music playing. She was even wearing my favorite shirt of hers, the one I once told her she looked beautiful in when we danced in the kitchen on her birthday. She tried to smile. I didn't. She started in with her speech. Some Frankenstein mix of therapy language and half-baked vulnerability. Stuff like, I've been reading about attachment styles. My mom's issues probably made me sabotage this. Jay was just a distraction from my pain. I stopped her right there. Jay wasn't a distraction. He was a decision. Over and over. That's when I handed her the envelope. Inside was a printed copy of the separation paperwork, a letter from my lawyer, and a list of the charges I'd pulled from our account, highlighted, annotated, timestamped. She looked up and for the first time since this all started, I saw fear on her face. Real fear. Not sadness. Not regret. Just the cold realization that I wasn't bluffing. Then, of course, came the flip. She went full bitch mode. So what? You're just going to throw everything away because I made one mistake? You're seriously going to lawyer up like I'm some kind of criminal? You're acting like you were perfect. Like you didn't make me feel alone. There it was. The real Lena. The version that never takes blame unless she's losing control. I just said, I wasn't perfect. But I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I didn't make you feel alone. You were alone. Because you left me long before Jay ever unzipped his pants. She stood there shaking. And I could see the gears grinding in her head. She thought she'd reel me back in with guilt and charm like always. But this time, I walked out without looking back. Part 11. The Fallout. Dealing with the aftermath. I left that day with everything I needed. The paperwork, my dignity, and a clear sense of where I stood. It was over. No more second guessing. No more hoping it would get better. The truth had been laid out in front of me, and there was no pretending anymore. But just because it was over logically didn't mean the emotional cleanup was going to be easy. God, I wish I could say I was at peace with everything immediately, but I wasn't. Not by a long shot. The first few days at my brother's house were a blur of anger and numbness. I didn't cry. Couldn't. I was too busy grappling with the idea that everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and commitment had just been shredded in front of me. I reached out to a few friends for support, and some of them were kind, offering me their advice and comfort. Others, not so much. Some of them tried to understand Lena's side, like maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, like it was all my fault too. That shit almost made me punch someone. But mostly, I stayed away from everyone who wasn't in my corner. The people who made excuses for her weren't my friends anymore. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was looking for peace. I took time off work to clear my head. I didn't make any big decisions. I didn't rush into anything. But I did start going to therapy, both for me and for what I'd been through in the marriage. I didn't realize how much I had been suppressing until I started talking to someone. Honestly, it helped. A lot. What helped even more was that I stopped blaming myself for her choices. She made her bed. She lied. She cheated. And she used me as her safety net while she explored a parallel life. And I had to own the fact that I let it happen. So I started rebuilding. Slowly. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned. I started exercising more. I got back into old projects I used to love, things that made me feel whole and me again. Lena tried to contact me several times in the weeks after I moved out. First it was texts, then it was voicemails, then the messages came in every form she could think of. Asking for another chance, begging me to reconsider, even sending me flowers. The usual manipulative stuff. I didn't respond to any of it. Couldn't. I was done. I had to be. Part 12. The decision, to divorce or not. Eventually, Lena gave up on the text bombardment and started to play her last card, the guilt card. She came to my brother's house, unannounced, like she thought her showing up in person would somehow fix everything. When I answered the door, she was crying. Real tears this time. I'm not gonna lie, part of me wanted to hold her. Part of me wanted to forget everything that had happened and let her make it right. It was the part of me that still loved her, that still wanted to believe there was a chance for us. But I had to remember why I'd left in the first place. She started in with her apologies. The real ones. Not the, I'm sorry I got caught kind. But the, I've messed up and I realize how much I hurt you ones. She admitted that she'd been selfish. She admitted that the affair wasn't just about her needs. It was her running away from her own insecurities. She said she'd never felt good enough for me, and Jay made her feel validated, if only for a moment. At some point, I just stood there, letting her talk, without saying anything. I let her get it all out. Then I calmly told her, I don't know who you are anymore. The person you were when I married you, she's gone. And I think I've been mourning her for longer than I realized. That was it. I couldn't fix this. Not for her. Not for me. I had to accept that no matter how much she cried, no matter how much she begged, there was no going back. There was no putting the shattered pieces of this relationship back together. I told her I was filing for divorce. I said I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad anymore. I was just done. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about moving forward. I had spent too much time trying to keep a broken thing together, and it wasn't fair to either of us anymore. Her response was expected. She crumpled. I think she thought I'd change my mind, but I didn't. It wasn't my job to fix her. It wasn't my responsibility to forgive the unforgivable. I'd given her my trust and she had used it to destroy us. That's not something you can rebuild. I filed for divorce the next week. Part 13, the legal battle, divorce isn't clean. Filing for divorce was the easy part. I thought that once I made the decision, everything else would fall into place. But damn, was I wrong. I'll spare you all the legal jargon, but let's just say this. Divorce isn't as easy as just signing the papers. It's paperwork. It's meetings. It's back and forth with lawyers. And in my case, it was a lot of back and forth with Lena, who kept trying to manipulate me into taking her back. She hired a lawyer too, of course. A good one, apparently. One who was more than happy to drag things out, keep things messy. Her lawyer kept suggesting that we try mediation. At first, I was open to it, but as soon as I walked into the first session, I knew it was just a way for Lena to play the victim and get me to back down. She'd twist the conversation to make it seem like I was the one holding the grudge. Like I was the one who couldn't move past it. That was the moment I realized I couldn't trust anything she said or did. Her lawyer came at me with everything: spousal support, a bigger cut of the house, accusations that I was too distant and that I was emotionally abusive. Seriously, where the hell did that come from? The accusations were the low blow. But I didn't flinch. I didn't bite. I kept my head straight and I kept going back to what I wanted, what I knew I deserved. I kept all my documentation, texts, emails, and the photos, which I knew would be the nail in the coffin. Lena's lawyer kept pushing for an amicable settlement, but the whole time I just knew that Lena was secretly hoping I'd cave and settle for a more favorable outcome for her. The audacity. I didn't cave. The process dragged on for months, and I'll admit it wore me down. There were days I wanted to quit, but I kept reminding myself that this was my future. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything and then waltz away with more than she deserved. The mediation finally broke down when Lena tried to pull one last card. She begged me to drop the divorce and give her another chance. Again. She even promised to give up everything, her career, her friends, if I'd just let us try to fix things. I almost lost it. What part of no don't you understand? I told her. It wasn't about what she was offering anymore. It was about who she was. And who she was someone I couldn't trust to ever love me the way I deserved. By the end of the process, the divorce was finalized. She kept the house. I kept my peace. We both walked away with what we had when we came in, just different versions of ourselves. But I had something she couldn't take. My dignity. My self-worth. And I was free. Part 14, the healing, finding my own peace. The first few months after the divorce were the hardest. Not because I miss Lena, I didn't. I'd already processed the loss of her long before the legal papers were signed. No, it was the adjustment that was brutal. The feeling of being free, but also being so alone. I'll be honest, I didn't handle it perfectly. I tried to jump into dating right away, thinking that would somehow fill the emptiness. It didn't. Dating was frustrating. Everyone I met just reminded me of what I had with Lena, the good parts, the bad parts, the hurt parts. I realized I wasn't ready. I needed to be alone for a while to actually heal instead of using someone else to fill the hole that was left. I threw myself into work. I started hiking again, something I'd stopped doing when Lena and I got together. I got back into my photography, a hobby I had abandoned for years. Slowly, bit by bit, I started to piece myself back together. I started reading more, writing again, finding joy in the little things. I didn't need to be fixed by someone else. I had to fix myself. The first time I smiled for real again, I felt like a weight had been lifted. The first time I went on a trip by myself, I felt alive again. I realized that I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I reconnected with old friends I had drifted away from during the marriage. They were incredible. They supported me, didn't question my decisions, and encouraged me to just be. They reminded me of who I was before Lena, of who I used to be before I let myself get lost in someone else. And then, about 6 months after the divorce, I ran into her. Lena. It wasn't planned. I was in town for work, grabbing coffee at a place I used to go with her. I didn't see her at first, but then I heard that laugh. The one I'd been able to pick out of a crowd. I turned around and there she was. She looked different. She looked tired. Not the radiant woman I had married. Not the woman I had once believed could never hurt me. She was wearing a sad smile, like she was waiting for me to react. "Hey," she said softly. I stood there, frozen for a moment. All the old feelings came rushing back. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal. But instead of feeling the urge to lash out, I just felt nothing. That was the moment I realized how far I'd come. She wasn't my enemy anymore. She wasn't my anything anymore. She was just a chapter in my life that I was done reading. We talked for a few minutes. She apologized again. Said she was still working on herself, still figuring things out. She had a new boyfriend now, she said. But they were taking it slow. I didn't care. I didn't need to know any of that. I just nodded and said, "I'm happy for you." I meant it, though. Not because I wanted her to be happy with someone else, but because I had finally found peace within myself. I had moved on. I had let go. I walked out of that coffee shop with a lightness in my step that I hadn't had in years. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I had nothing left to prove to her or anyone. I was just me again. Part 15. Reflections. What I learned. Now, a year later, I can say I'm in a better place. Much better. I won't lie, it's still a process. There are days when I feel that ache in my chest, when the loneliness creeps in, or I catch myself missing the idea of her, not the reality. But overall, I've learned something crucial. Healing isn't linear. It's messy. And it doesn't happen on anyone else's timeline but your own. I've learned that just because you love someone doesn't mean you should tolerate their disrespect. Lena's affair didn't just break the trust between us. It broke my belief in myself. It made me question my own worth, my ability to see the truth, my choices. But over time, I realized that her choices were hers. The way she treated me wasn't a reflection of who I was. It was a reflection of who she was. And I don't get to carry that weight. I've learned that I can be strong without being bitter. I don't need to hold on to anger to protect myself. The pain I felt doesn't have to define me. It can be a lesson, not a scar. It's hard, but I'm proud of how far I've come. I was broken, yes, but I rebuilt. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about absolving someone else of their actions. It's about releasing myself from being trapped in the past. I don't forgive Lena because she deserves it. I forgive her because it frees me. I let go because I have to in order to live my life without her shadow looming over me. I've learned that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. In fact, the peace I've found in solitude has been invaluable. I've rediscovered who I am, without needing someone else's validation. I've learned that I don't need to be in a relationship to feel complete. I am enough as I am. And lastly, I've learned that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means accepting that things ended the way they did. It means making peace with the past, and allowing yourself to move forward without the weight of regret. For anyone reading this who's going through something similar, whether it's cheating, betrayal, or simply losing yourself in a toxic relationship, know this. You will get through it. The pain won't last forever. You'll rebuild just like I did. But it has to be on your terms. Don't settle. Don't let anyone convince you that you're not worth the best version of yourself. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving the person who hurt you. It's learning to forgive yourself for trusting them in the first place. So here I am, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next. I'm living life for me, and that's more than I could have said a year ago. And Lena? I hope she finds what she's looking for. But that's no longer my problem. I'm good. Better than good. I'm free.